The US withdrew its troops after 20 years of fighting the Taliban since it invaded Afghanistan in 2001. But now the Taliban are back on the attack, retaking much of the country. The US has told Afghanistan that it's no longer their problem and have unfairly blamed the Afghan military. Joe Biden said they have got to fight for themselves, right for their nation. However, these problems stem from decades of mismanagement of the war efforts by the US. Here are 3 reasons why the US is to blame for the current situation in Afghanistan. Number 1. They built a weak Afghan security force. The US routinely cut corners on training and funding for Afghan security forces, making them ill-equipped to fight the Taliban. They also struggled to finish the Taliban off when they were weak, giving them plenty of chances to regroup and fight back. Number 2. They negotiated with the Taliban. The Afghan government resisted dialogue with the Taliban and tried to unite the country's different tribes against them. However, the US undermined their efforts and 20 years of fighting by holding negotiations with the Taliban behind their backs. This gave the Taliban legitimacy and support, as many now saw them as vital force for peace. Number 3. They left too early and suddenly. The US left Afghanistan without securing any sort of peace deal with the Taliban to stop the fighting. They also announced the withdrawal of its troops at the beginning of a Taliban offensive, leaving the Afghanistan security forces to collapse without their vital military support. Overall, there are an interconnected web of reasons as to why Afghanistan is facing so many problems right now. But the main culprit behind them is not the Afghan security forces, but the poor decision made by the United States. They have taken horrific casualties over the course of this war. Their families have been targeted, and yet they have continued to volunteer. It is in fact offensive not to recognize this determination that hundreds of thousands of Afghans have shown up to the fight against our common enemies, and their willingness to die and run risks to their families to do so. It is not part of a story that is not being told.